Hello, thank you, Liz, and thanks everyone for joining me today. Um, as Liz mentioned, let's use the chat box a lot so we can learn from each other and I can learn from you guys as well. It also makes for a bit more of a fun and interactive webinar. So whilst I'm introducing myself to the people that I've not spoken to before, could you answer the first question for me? What kind of stress are you having to manage at the minute? Is it, are you experiencing stress yourself? Is it personal stress that you're interested in and how to manage your own stress, or is it a specific workplace stress that you're going through at the moment? So whilst you're all scribbling away, I will just introduce myself. My name is Barbara Nixon. I'm a management and leadership development coach and trainer, and I work with teams and individuals to develop them through face-to-face training programs, coaching videos, and e-learning packages. So you're all typing away, which is fantastic. So what have we got? We have got, studying, a new boss, being underappreciated at work, fantastic. Well, it's not fantastic, but thank you very much for putting that in. Studying can be incredibly stressful. We've got work-related. We've got, just bear with me while the chat box is zooming up, so I'm trying to pick them out. We've got personal stress, direct reports suffering from stress, workplace stress cases, personal and work-related stress, okay? Being tarred with someone else's brush, convincing others I didn't say what they think I did. Right, okay, that can be incredibly stressful. You keep typing and I'm going to keep coming back to that because we are going to be covering a lot on workplace stress and touching on personal stress later on. Now, I recognise that as a leader of a team, you are really, really busy. The guys that I work with just don't stop from the minute they get into work till the minute they leave. They've got to-do lists as long as their arm, and I really do understand how time-consuming being a manager and a leader is. But there is an easier way. My mission is to support you to manage your team and yourself in such a way that you get the headspace you need to be able to focus on exactly what you need to be focusing on and leave work with a sense of achievement. Now, if this sounds like something that would benefit you, come and join me at barbaranixon.co.uk and you've got the link there in front of you. So why are we focusing on managing stress today? Well, unfortunately, it is a sign of the times. As we live in the 21st century, it is full of different kinds of pressure. We're surrounded by technology, which makes it almost impossible to turn off from our jobs, our friends, our hobbies, and our responsibilities. And we're also always in touch with things like social media. I know we had a chat before the webinar started. But we've got things like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Google+. The list is absolutely endless. And it makes it impossible to turn off from things like external influences, like the news, the weather, just the internet in general. And it also makes it incredibly easy for people to get in touch with us and very difficult for us not to answer when they do. And we are hearing more and more advice saying have some gadget-free time or turn gadgets off before you go to bed and all of that. And whilst I'm talking, I'm actually reminded of a conversation I had with a client yesterday who said that they're really looking forward to having a weekend off the radar. And when I asked what that meant, they said that they just wanted a weekend, apart from the TV, that they're not going to have any electronics, no laptops, tablets, phones, as they really needed that space away from constant broadcasting. Can anyone relate to that? So have a think about that. And that's just one example of the stress that we have to deal with. Yeah, we've got absolutely, yes, yes, yes. Yes is coming up over and over again. In recent times, we've also suffered other pressures, like economic pressures. And for many people, it led to job losses and a change in their financial situation. So your place of work might have been restructured, you might have downsized, and this may mean that there are fewer people doing the same amount of work and subsequently much more pressure. Again, is this something that any of you have experienced in recent years? All of this can cause stress. Yeah, we've got yeses coming up over and over again. And you might be feeling it yourself, or you just might know somebody who is feeling stressed. It might be a member of your team or family. And it's because of this that we all need to be aware of stress and how it affects us and how we can support each other. So today we're going to aim to get through the following. We're going to talk about what stress actually is. We're going to look at why it's a problem, what causes stress at work, how we recognise it, and as we go along we're going to talk about things that we can do to combat it. And like I said, we're also going to look at personal stress and what we can do to manage our own stress later on. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, the webinars I do are interactive. Please do feel free to use the chat box to talk to each other as well as answering the questions, because it's great if we can get a bit of conversation going so we can learn from each other. I'm also really passionate about action without overwhelm. So don't worry about trying to capture everything that we're talking about, but instead focus on finding that one gem of learning that you're going to try. Now you'll know it because it'll just jump out at you as you hear it. And if you could let me know what it is at the end, that would be fantastic. So let's start by deciding what stress actually is. Well, the dictionary definition of stress is the adverse reaction people have to excessive pressure or other types of demands placed on them. Now, this adverse reaction that we're going to look at can differ massively from person to person and the duration of the stress. And we'll go into this in a minute, but generally it's when we're faced with a situation that we feel is completely out of our control. And as a result, we develop something called fight or flight response, which you've probably heard of before. Now, this was established by Walter Cannon in 1932, who showed that when we come across something that is a shock or a threat, we release a hormone to help us survive. So we might want to run away or we might want to fight. And when this happens, we experience our blood pressure going up and our heart beating faster. We might start to sweat more. And more importantly, we stop thinking about anything other than the threat that we're facing. Any of you been in the situation where you're having to do an important task, maybe a presentation in front of some people that you need to influence, and all of a sudden you're paralysed by fear and nerves? This is you experiencing fight and flight. I'll just wait while a couple of you are typing. Now, unfortunately, your body, whilst this is happening, is preparing for running away or fighting rather than doing the presentation or doing the task. Yeah, we've got yeses, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, you're amongst friends, absolutely. We've all been in that position. And unfortunately, whilst your body's preparing for either running away or fighting, we're struggling to perform and actually do the task or the presentation that we're supposed to be doing. Now, unfortunately, we haven't evolved to stop this from happening, even though the threats that we face are really different from those of our ancestors. So it's often not a very useful state to be in, as it makes it very difficult to control or make decisions or even remain calm. Now, stress is not that dissimilar. When we feel stressed, we find it really difficult to focus, to stay calm, or to be productive. So it is important that we manage it correctly. It is something that we suffer from time to time. In fact, I bet if we're honest, we can probably all put our hands up that over the last 12 months we've suffered from some form of stress, from whether it's mild or extreme. You may have even been surprised at what's caused you to feel stressed, because it can change massively from one person to the next, and even from one situation to the next, depending upon what's going on. Either way, it's important that we take it seriously. Just to go back a step, do some people experience more of this fight or flight than others? I'm just answering a question from Jenny. Some people seem to deal with it with ease. It's a really good question, Jenny. I think, yes, you can train yourself to actually deal with nerves. So some people just seem to be able to, with ease, just get up and be confident, whilst others struggle. It is about training yourself to actually handle those nerves a little bit more than... And people have probably got more practice in than you might realise. I hope that answers your question, Jenny. So now that we know what stress is, I just want to have a bit of a chat about about how it affects us. Now, this is a difficult one to answer, as it can be so different from one person to the next. But as employers, we do have a duty of care to our employees, so it's important to understand it better. Now, some people say that they work better under pressure, that it actually sharpens the senses. And of course, a little bit of pressure is no bad thing. However, it's when it starts to be excessive, that's where the problem starts. So my next question is, what symptoms can you think of that individuals might experience when they're going through stress? So what are the symptoms of stress? Symptoms of stress for me. So we've got loss of concentration, lack of sleep, panic. Yeah, that's a big one. Headache, backache, general anxiety. Shortness of breath for me. irritable. We've got shortness of breath. Liz is saying making mistakes, um, both physical, emotional, absence, irritability. Yeah. For some people, what have we got there? Can't think. Yeah, well, you can't think straight, James, or you can. Yeah, can't think straight. Yeah, absolutely. Anger, loss of concentration. All of those are great ones. Thank you for putting those down. For some people, it can definitely just mean no more than a sleepless night here and there. Others can get severe health problems, so panic attacks, and it can affect their day-to-day lives greatly. It could affect their health in a number of different ways. So just some examples, and I think you've probably mentioned all of the ones that I've got here. It could affect your eating habits, your digestion, your sociability. It could affect your emotions, headaches, or insomnia, or cause you to grind your teeth in your sleep. It could even cause heart problems. So it does need to be taken really, really seriously. What about the business then? How can stress affect the business? I know somebody further up the stream said absence. Oh yeah, absence. Yeah, there. So how can stress affect the business? Hmm. Got loss of productivity, reliability. Yeah, productivity again. Some grievances made. Absenteeism. Yeah, poor quality, poor customer service, making mistakes. Um, Potentially conflict, making bad decisions, costly mistakes, poor decision making. Yeah, effectiveness. More time required to support employees. Completely agree there. Now, as well as individuals, stress can affect a business because of things that you've mentioned already, potentially high absence, especially frequent short spells of sickness. You might have high labour turnover, low morale or motivation, reduced performance, poor timekeeping, all of which could lead to disciplinary problems, which could potentially cause more pressure on you as the manager. But it can also impact other team members, as they might have to cover someone's workload if a person is off work with stress. Yeah, we've got absenteeism there, additional pressure on colleagues. So what is our responsibility as a manager then? My next question, if you want to scribble that down in the chat box. What is your responsibility as a manager to manage stress? Yeah, we've got duty of care there. For individuals whilst they're absent. Absolutely. Just give you a minute to have a think. Let's have a look. Support individuals, but also the needs of the business. Yeah, it's a, a double one, isn't it? Let's have a look. Notice it and talk to them. Support colleagues. Get help if required. Get help. Yeah. Listen and be there to support. Offering support. We've got confidentiality. Thank you. Yeah, do a risk assessment. Fantastic. Thank you. Return to work interviews when they return to make plans. Great. As we mentioned earlier, as a manager, you do have a duty of care for your employees. So it is important that you manage the stress levels that your employees are experiencing. We did mention earlier that a small amount of pressure can be no bad thing, as it can help to motivate someone. However, as we've already mentioned, when pressure becomes excessive, it can result in stress that is detrimental to a person's health. Severe stress can lead to any number of health problems, just like we've mentioned, including nervous breakdowns and heart problems, as well as affecting how a person performs their job. So it is really important that we manage it correctly and also know what we're looking for, which is my next question, and this is quite a crucial one really. How can you tell whether someone is experiencing stress? So experiencing stress, what is it that you're looking for? Yeah, we've got changes in personality. Yeah, changes in their behaviour, so they might start to be withdrawn. Got changes in their mood, changes from their normal performance. Um, so emotional behaviour like crying, repeat short-term absence, yeah, maybe snapping at colleagues. Yeah, so again, it's an emotional response. Their performance dipping. I'll just let you finish typing. Um, lack of response when you're speaking to them, Vicky. Is that what you mean? Refusing to take part in the normal activities. Yeah, so if they're shying away from actually doing their job. No set identifiers but behaviour, performance, out of context response, so changes, yeah. Word of mouth is a great one. We've not had that before, so somebody telling you. Right, Vicky, thanks for clarifying that for me. So it is changes from their normal performance and for you asking for work to be done. And then working long hours. Yeah, that now all of that is not they're all fantastic symptoms, and you are looking for that and more, and it's not an exhaustive list, but here are some symptoms that I've just come up with. So we've got changes in a person's mood or behaviour, which I think definitely some of you have said. Deteriorating relationships with you or as the manager or their peers or teams and individuals. They might be irritable. They might not be able to make a decision. They might have reduced performance. Their absence might have gone up, whether they're with short and frequent spells. They might have started having an increase in their smoking and drinking. They might be complaining about illnesses constantly, like headaches or stomach aches. They might have mood swings, which I know some of you mentioned, where either anger, snapping at colleagues, or crying. They might be more tired than usual, or they might have a change in their eating habits, where that's eating more or less. Now, the other thing to consider, and I know we've talked about that in the chat box a bit further up, is that the excessive pressure might not actually be caused by work. Although as the manager you're not under any legal obligation to prevent ill health caused by stress due to problems outside of work, they can really add to the pressure of work, so they should be taken into consideration when trying to support people. Now, the best way to do this is to get to know your team. If possible, get to know what's going on outside of work so you can manage people better. Now, I do know that it's not always possible, as they might not always be forthcoming with personal information, but just simple chit-chat about hobbies and what they did at the weekend can always help a person to open up. As an aside, it's always helpful if you know as much as possible about what people are dealing with outside of work as well. So that, are they a parent? Are they a single parent? Are they caring for somebody, maybe an elderly relative? Do they have a lot of hobbies that is causing them stress outside of work? What other responsibilities do they have? Are they moving house? Are they going through a separation? By knowing bits and pieces about what somebody is dealing with outside of work, you can really start to support them should they need it. It's also worth mentioning that some people put themselves under pressure, and this is one to really take into consideration, and they could do this by having an obsession with completing tasks, so they might want to beat their deadlines, they might be rushing around everywhere, they might give themselves too much to do, they might struggle relaxing or not want to relax, they might be very competitive, they might be really ambitious and might need lots of recognition, or they might be driven by a fear of failure and doing things wrong. Now, anyone spot these behaviours in either themselves or people they know? So that people that put themselves intentionally under pressure. Yeah, we've got some yeses coming up again. Yes, yes, yes. Now, for some people, this is the right amount of pressure and they can control it themselves. Thanks for saying that. Yes, I do it. Thank you for that. I think I do as well, so you're in good company. Yeah, for some people, it's the right amount of pressure and they can control it, but for some, they might actually just warrant a bit of a one-to-one conversation. And it's just one to keep an eye on, really, to see whether it actually causes more harm. I'm just looking at the chat box now. I have someone in my team who's new to the role and is stressed by the lack of performance, but it's a new role. That is really common, Vicky. Often when you start a new role, people want to hit the ground running and add value straight away because they just want to add value. But I think it's just about telling them and reassuring them that they only get one chance to be new, and to just take this opportunity to learn and go through their induction. But yeah, that is one that I see quite a lot. Yeah, thanks, Vicky. Now, so what causes stress at work? Now, unfortunately, there really isn't enough time to go into everything that might cause stress at work, because it does have a lot to do with the individual and the job that they do. So some people might be able to deal with a lot of pressure, whereas others not so much. And what makes it difficult is that this can vary greatly from one person to another. Now, it's probably worth mentioning that your company culture could also be a contributing factor. So, for example, if people don't have enough information or don't know what's happening, they may jump to conclusions or start to feel under pressure. Or if there is a blame culture or a presenteeism mentality, or an expectation that people will regularly work excessively long hours or take work home with them. Now, if you can relate to this, then you might want to think about providing opportunities for people to suggest their ideas and follow up these ideas by giving feedback so that people do feel as though they're valued and contributing. You might also want to allow your employees to be involved, particularly in periods of change, by asking again for their ideas and opinions where possible. You could set good examples and role model behaviours, especially when it comes to working late or starting early. People can feel as though they have to work longer hours because their managers or their directors are doing that. So if you're seeing that pattern emerging within your team, it might be worth just mentioning that that isn't the case. Um, Also, like somebody mentioned earlier on in the chat, just being approachable and being there to talk to if someone needs it. You might also want to set up an employee council and a communication policy to give people a voice. Now, as well as company culture, stress could also be caused by demands of the job. Now, the obvious one is obviously too much to do in too little time, but the opposite is also true where people don't have enough to do and they don't feel like they're adding value. Now, they may also feel as though they've not had enough training or support and that they've been thrown in at the deep end. Now, some ideas on how this can be resolved are by just helping them to prioritise tasks, by giving people enough warning for urgent tasks and supporting them if they've not done it before. Providing realistic deadlines if you're delegating and making sure that they know that they don't have to do it all at once, and give people sufficient training and make sure they've got the right resources to do their job properly. You might even consider multitasking and multi-skilling to provide variety. This is especially good so that when someone is on holiday, there's enough cover so that when they come back, they're not drowning in workload. Um, Now, lack of control over the work they do can also cause stress. So if possible, allow people some control over their pace of work. Encourage them to participate in making decisions and empower them when they've been delegated to complete a task. Now, I really do appreciate that some of these ideas might not always be feasible and they're not always easy to actually put into place, but they're just to give you a bit of a flavour of potential solutions. And I do know that obviously you do need some great managers on board just to make it a little bit easier for you to put in place. So thanks for mentioning that. Now, another big contributing factor to stress is relationships at work. And I know somebody mentioned that again. For example, if someone has poor relationships with others or are being bullied or harassed in some way, it can really cause undue pressure. Now, this can be addressed through adequate training, having processes and systems in place to prevent bullying, ensuring you've got effective communication at all levels within the team, and even providing some social gatherings, if possible, and a culture of trust and support. Now, the next topic I want to touch upon is change, because this often goes hand in hand with a feeling of stress, as there's a greater feeling of uncertainty about what's happening or even fears about job security. Now, we've seen this more and more in recent times as change can be so prevalent in so many organisations. Now, if you're in a period of change at the minute, then absolutely the best way of dealing with this is to communicate as much as you possibly can. Consult people, involve where possible, support them, and don't delay in communicating any changes, as people will often imagine the worst anyway. People could also feel stressed about their particular role. This often happens when people have only just joined an organisation, they might have started a new job or been promoted within the role, and they may be confused about their responsibilities or how they fit into the organisation or their contributing. They may even go through a period of time when they miss their old job, colleagues and place of work. Now, this is really natural and can be made easier by providing a clear job description of what you're asking them to do and just introducing them to different members of the team. Now, the first 12 weeks of joining a new company is critical to settling someone in. A good induction can really help this happen and obviously avoid all the, all the unnecessary costs of re-recruiting and retraining if somebody was to leave. So please do take the time to give someone an induction. Now, you might also find that some people feel stressed as they feel they can't balance their work and their personal life and that everything's just a bit too much. Or they may be returning from being absent or that they don't have any clear career progression. It's always a good idea to provide adequate training, allow a phased return into work after long terms of periods of absence, and have regular one-to-ones so you can talk through any potential problems. Now, the main thing here is to take into account that everybody is different, and often you can help by talking and listening to the person, remembering it at all times to respect the confidentiality of the conversation. Now, we're going to move on to looking at how to manage our own stress better, because I think some of you mentioned that earlier on. Now, a good first step is to knowing when we feel stressed. So have a think about what your personal symptoms are, and we've all got them. Do you start to smoke or drink more or less? Do you start eating more chocolate or things that are bad for you? Do you struggle with sleeping? Do your tolerance levels go down? Do you start losing your temper? Do you get headaches or stomach aches or backaches? Now, as we mentioned earlier, it really isn't an exhaustive list, but by listening to your own body and knowing your own symptoms, you can start to understand what your triggers, what your symptoms are and what triggers them and what you can do about it. So to finish off, let's look at some hints and tips for managing your own stress. Now, number one is try to have a positive attitude. Now, I saw a TED Talk by Kelly McGonigal, and the TED Talk was called How to Make Stress Your Friend. And she talked about how people who see stress as helpful rather than something that is bad for you don't actually experience as many health problems when under stress, which I thought was really interesting. So go and have a look at that. It was quite a good one. And she mentioned that how you think about stress really does matter. Now, number two is don't try to control events that you can't control. 3, try to take an assertive approach rather than an aggressive one and express your feelings, opinions and beliefs rather than bottling it up. 4 is do not accept or set yourself unrealistic goals and deadlines. What can't be done one day can be done the next. It is about leaving work with a clear conscience and not a clear in tray. Number 5, allow at least half an hour for each meal. Don't eat on the hoof. Eat slowly and digest your food properly. Take your break times and don't work through your lunch or eat at your desk. Easier said than done, I know, especially when time's the pressure in itself, but by taking that time out, at least half an hour, it'll do you the world of good. 6 is try to use relaxation techniques, so things like meditation and breathing. If you've not tried it, I urge you to give it a go and see whether it works for you. Number 7 is make sure you take regular exercise and at least once a day get out of the office and get some fresh air. 8, try to eat a healthy, balanced diet. 9, manage your time so that you have time to review the day and then you can switch off and relax when you go home. A good tip is to write your list for the next day so you can just put it to one side and you're not whirring it around in your own mind when you get home. 10 is set limits on the time you devote to other people so that you can have some quality me time. 11 is make time for hobbies and things that you enjoy. 12 is rest and sleep are really important for good health because it restores your body and mind, so make sure that you are getting enough rest. 13, don't rely on alcohol to relax you. 14, use social support from people who are close to you. And 15, if you feel that you need to, go speak to your GP and talk to them. So that brings us to the end of the webinar. Has anyone got any questions at all? Yeah, and likewise, as Liz just mentioned, has anyone got any other tips that we can add to our list? And I'm happy to add your tips to the list, and then we can whiz that out to you so you've got a good directory of top tips. So any questions, any top tips? And I'd also love to hear what your one gem is, so please do put that in the chat box for me so I can see it. Right, we've got talking to others. How do you stop the fight and flight when it starts and you know it's damaging you? I think the best way is to do some work before you actually get into that place, so you've got something to fall back on. So you can try anchoring yourself, or you can try deep breathing, or just if you've got the opportunity to nip into I always say dip into the ladies into a cubicle and just take a few deep breaths. Also, if it's a presentation that you're doing, if you practice and practice beforehand, you start to feel a lot more confident. But maybe that's something that we can do on a webinar. That might be a good webinar topic. Would that help, Sue? Because there's not a lot of time to go through different techniques now, but we can certainly put that onto the calendar for later on. Music is a good one. Music is a great one. Yeah, have a motivational CD or a track on your phone. Take a deep breath 5 minutes away from your desk if you feel it's getting too much. Yeah, often we forget to breathe, don't we? So just really taking that deep breath. Your gem, Sharon, to do a to-do list at the end of the day, then put work away and forget about it. Yes, definitely. I'm so pleased about that. The radio's really helped with the stress in our office. That's good. Right, so we'll do that then. We'll put that on the calendar and revisit that later on. Think of happy moments and people who make you smile. Yeah, it's a good one. My gem is a quick walk around the office, then back to task. Definitely. If you can add a quick walk round outside, I don't know where you work or whether that's possible, you're not on a busy road or anything, then definitely. You might think, oh, it's cold, it's raining. Even if you stand at the door and take a few deep breaths outside, the fresh air does you the world of good. Watch funny videos, definitely, Sue. Love that idea. We're gonna grab these. Are we able to grab these? Yeah, I'm gonna grab these and I'll put these on the end slide so in a different colour so we can see all the great gems that's come out from everybody. I agree on the to-do list. I find doing at the end of the day works. It's like the end of the day when the list is done. Yeah. I think having a good support network is so important. I completely agree, Fiona. Even if it's somebody that you can phone up and have a really good moan to for 2 minutes and then you'll feel better and you put it to bed and you can move on. As long as you don't dwell on it, so don't get into that muddy pool really, so you can, have a vent and then move on. Having a cup of tea, definitely. You're it's just so me. I am probably the biggest tea fan in the world, so definitely having a cup of tea. Yeah, practice mindfulness. Yeah, love it. Yeah. Yeah, there are some good ones. So thank you very much for joining me today. Don't think too much about things you can't change. Yeah, love it. And they're still coming in. I'm so impressed with all of these. I love that. Jenny, thanks. That is great. A bit of an accountability partner at the end. I have a colleague that we have mutually agreed that we give each other 2 minutes to vent and then we let it go. Fantastic. I want to join that club. That's a great one. So yeah, brilliant idea. So 2 minutes on the clock, moan, and then move on. Like I said before, just don't just stay in that place. You as long as you've got to move on, that's great. But I love that idea. So thank you very much for sharing all your gems and your top tips. Like I said, I am going to put that on the last slide and I'll ask Liz to share that with you. Before I leave, I want to say a massive thank you. I love doing these webinars and just having a chat to you is a great way of spending my afternoon. Feel free to find me at barbaranixon.co.uk or join me on LinkedIn. I know you don't do Twitter, but join me on LinkedIn. I've got a Facebook group as well if you want to chat to me every day. And thank you very much. Have a great week. See you later. Bye.
Thank you, Barbara. I feel de-stressed just listening to you. Some fabulous ideas there. Thank you, everybody, for putting their ideas up there. I look forward to collating all that information. Brilliant. Some really useful bits there. So finally, just before we disappear, you can see all our information, all the places that you can get in touch with Shorebird, download the slides, listen to the recordings on YouTube, etc. on that final slide there. And just to let you know that next week we've got interviewing and selecting with Joanne Vose, and that'll be at the usual time at 1 o'clock. And then the week after, a CIPD-sponsored event, which will be the employment law update. We had such a huge response to the last one we did last month. not everybody could join, unfortunately. So we're running it again. So feel free to join us on those events. In the meantime, if I can take this opportunity to thank you very, very much. Fabulous engagement and fabulous ideas in the webinar there. Thank you, Barbara. I look forward to speaking to you in the near future. Take care.